MC is in the house. What's up, folks? My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. I'm here every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time, taking a topic, deep diving, having a good time while doing it. Appreciate you guys showing up when you do. I don't want to have these conversations by myself, and usually I have a pretty good group participating to make it worth my while. So before we get into today's topic, just a couple of details, housekeeping, etc. If you guys are not getting my emails, you can go to masterchimletter.com. The URL should be right here if you're watching on a desktop, and it should be right here if you're watching on a mobile. This thing is a little bit fancy pants even for me. But go and get my emails. I have a good time writing those emails every day, and I usually get some pretty good feedback. Sometimes a little bit of hate mail. Sometimes people telling me to go fuck myself. But, everybody's got an opinion, right? What's got going on here? Aaron, what's up, Don? Greetings from Canada in the house. One of my Canadian operatives. I didn't mean that, Canadian government. Don't go knocking on their fucking door. My man Cap is in the house. What's up, brother man? Good to see you. Jamie, the other Martin of the Martin duo of Canadian operatives. I think maybe every week I should just give you guys a new title. Confuse the government. That's certainly spying on your internet, right, up there in Canada. But everything's going well. A lot of things going on this week as usual. Man, there's so many topics. Like, I'll be honest, sometimes I have to be disciplined because if it was up to me, and I think everybody this probably applies to, but if it was up to me, I would just talk about the shit that I think is relevant to me every week. And there is some power in being somebody that does that and just says, fuck it. Which kind of speaks to today's topic, right? So as I was thinking about what I wanted to speak about, this dilemma always presents itself where it's like, all right, do I talk about, like, am I going to talk about Trump or the fucking crazy lefties or the guy that got shot, fucking wrestling with ice or Israel, like Epstein, like how many things am I supposed to like, is there enough going on about that? Do people need to hear my fucking take on that stuff? So much of it is just a waste of fucking time. It's almost like you have somebody who they have this position of, you should never talk about these things that have nothing to do with your life. And then they talk about all these things for like an hour. And it's like, well, wait a minute, aren't we doing a thing that in the beginning you told us not to do? So I'm always, aware of that paradox in like when I'm telling people not to complain. I'm telling men that, you're a fucking bitch if you spend every day complaining about shit instead of having, an outlook of gratitude. But am I complaining about complaining? When I'm doing that, right? So it's just this level of self-awareness that sometimes it's a pain in the fucking ass. I got to be honest. In case you haven't noticed, this is the first time you're watching my show, I curse a lot, right? I could be a little vulgar. I think you guys are going to be okay. You could always sign off, but, there's some good stuff coming. So many jokes. All right, stay focused. All right, we just fucking started. I'm already going off the deep end. Jamie, what are you writing here? No worry, Europeans have a long history of not being able to keep their mouth shut when it comes to speaking truth to power. It's why they came up with freedom of speech to avoid a country of dead citizens. Yes, absolutely. But sometimes, like Cypher in the Matrix, some people just want a steak. They don't care if it's actually real. So all right. So today's topic is actually all these. What motivated it was talking about the guys who claim to speak truth to power, right? Such a weird phrase, right? Speak truth to power. Who's the guy? Vivek Ramaswamy. Every fucking speech he gave, and I don't mind Vivek. I mean, he's a little too Indian, if you ask me, but I'm not going to get into what that means. But he always uses this phrase, speaking truth to power. At some point, I guarantee, like, there's some algorithm that rated that phrase as being influential or persuasive. And that's why it was sort of, installed repetitively. And every time he gives a fucking talk, because if there's anyone that's living by a fucking algorithm, it's that guy. But what does it mean to speak truth to power? And, people use the phrase, they don't know what it means. People have different opinions about what it means. And I'll give you a take on my position of it. And that's really what was the impetus for designing today's talk's outline was about. It's really this idea of somebody saying something that he thinks needs to be said. It's almost like a proclamation of its merits along with his identity along with it. I say this is because it's true and because people like me say things like this, and so there's these different variables involved. But then every once in a while, you'll have somebody that'll put something out there that has some gravity to it, right? Some weight to it. And then they'll get some pushback. The temperature goes up, and I like the analogy of the heat and the melting and stuff. And you guys have been following me, you know that I use it a lot. But you have these situations where people are all about it and they're talking that talk until they get a little bit of pushback. And then all of a sudden, at some point, you see the pivot. And sometimes the pivot is a different energy. Sometimes it's a retreat. Sometimes it's a just reclassification of what they were talking about. But they were contacted, right? Or in some way they were reminded of a consequence that they renegotiated their position, once they were made aware of it, right? Or they were made to remember what the consequence was. And you see this a lot of times because people now, probably more than ever, and I don't even know, that's not even a qualified statement. I think it might be true, but I would say, regardless, now more than ever, people are building lives that are disproportionately relying upon the approval of others to some extent. And it's, if you're an employee, it's your employer. If it's, if you're a 30-year-old living in your parents' basement, it's your parents' patients, for what you're doing or not doing with your life. And I think a lot of it has to do because of the bottlenecks that technology create. I'm reminded of people, 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago at this point, when the whole Trump presidency thing became a thing and people started sort of just gravitating towards two sides of a battlefield. You saw a lot of people whose entire livelihoods was on YouTube just completely destroyed because all their eggs were in this fucking virtual basket and they never owned the basket and they paid the consequence, right? And there's too many examples of this to get into them. I don't think I'm going to add any more value by doing that. But you'll have people who live a life that requires a level of permission and approval. And I say we all do. I'm living on Mount Chim Chim and I don't have to come down and deal with anybody and talk to anybody. Like, that's not my reality. Like, I got fucking people that I gotta, at least acknowledge, their authority like anybody else. If I'm driving on the highway and a fucking cop lights me up from the back, it's like, yeah, I'm pulling over. Even if it's some fucking overweight 40-year-old lesbian, like, I'm pulling over because I understand the authority and the consequence that goes along with that authority that she represents. And it's always like, as Thomas Sowell said, life's a sequence of trade-offs. Everything's a trade-off, this or that. And I think when people position themselves to be very fragile in their ability to sustain themselves independently, every once in a while they may have this sort of this eruption, this seizure of authenticity or self-expression, And then when they're reminded of the world that they rely on, they have to pivot and sort of find a way to reconcile those two things. You have the guy that, will talk back to his boss, the boss fires him, and then the next day he's groveling to the boss to take him back because he had a bad day or whatever other fucking reason to rationalize why he was acting the way he was. There's a lot of just old wisdom around this idea of we are nice because we have to be. We ask for things because we have to be. And there are a lot of things that are functional because of the constraints and limitations of people's power to begin with. And it's not a lens that I think people like using, looking at morality or, just manners and whatnot, like having that really just be a testament to every individual's inability to do and act how they please. But that is the foundation of how this came to be. We started talking to one another, speaking, communicating to one another just because of the synergy that the teamwork, was capable of. Like we our whole consciousness is, and Nietzsche talks about this. Our consciousness is there first and foremost to help us communicate. And if we didn't have the need to communicate, we wouldn't be as conscious as we otherwise would be required to be, right? A little wordy on that last one, but I think you guys are tracking what I'm saying. So why are we nice to people? Because we have to be. Now, it's not to say that, well, I enjoy being nice. Even if I was a billionaire, I would still be nice to people, and that's fine. And that's fine. But what I'm saying is understand that if we're talking pure functionality, what you're describing, what you're sharing is a preference. You're still going to be nice to people because you think there's virtue and moral value in being nice, which is why you would defend your ability to maintain that aspect of your personality despite a growing level of power. It's like, okay, I would still, what's the actor? I just saw a clip the other day, Christian Bale, right? The Batman actor. Some picture online I saw where he still drives his like 20-year-old Toyota Tacoma truck, and it's like, oh, this guy, this is the type of person he is. It's like, okay, I guess we'll say that's valuable, If I was Christian Bale, I'd probably have a new car. I'm just saying, I own two cars, the two used cars. You know what? One's got a fucking transmission fluid leak right now that once the snow fucking goes away, I got to go and figure out how many fucking thousands of dollars that's going to cost me. You know what? I think I'd buy a better car. So to virtue signal the Lamborghini, different application, but conceptually in the same ballpark, is the person virtual signaling the $20 truck that he can afford a much better version of. I'm not saying that that's what Christian Bale is doing. What I'm saying is it's probably what he's doing. So again, I think when we're trying to establish authority, right? The whole premise of today's outline is about authority. It's called the authority test, right? Power without permission. When you're in charge, you need to act in charge. And when you're in charge, you don't need to ask permission. To ask permission when you are in charge is to imply that you are really not in charge, right? It's the person who every day of his life, he tries to make himself more impressive to strangers without ever realizing that that process that he's following is giving strangers control of his life. They are in charge of his life and the decisions that he's making, if his decisions are based on their approval or disapproval. So let's get to this list. Let's get back on mission. I'm going all over the place. And I got 10 things on this list, right? So let's get to this. I see a bunch of you guys commenting, and I appreciate it, but I gotta get to this. I'll get to you guys in a minute. All right. So the list I have for today, you guys know, maybe you guys don't know if this is the first time here. Every week I have a topic. I give some sort of intro, which I believe I just did. And then I get into a list. Lists are just easy. It gives me a sort of framework that I could just, operate in. I don't script my live videos. I think that would be awkward, right? Scripting a live video. I try to script my produced videos, but if you look at my channel, I don't really make a lot of them. I much prefer to do this. But let's get to the list. I'm fucking rambling, right? So here's the list for today. 10 signals that an authority requires permission. 10 signals that an authority requires permission. And then I was compelled to add a component of how to fix it, right? So if you're in a fucked up spot, how can you fix it, right? So we're going to start with number 10. And let's bring that up on stage. This is where I start fucking up. Too many damn buttons on the screen. And I don't have a producer, so I got to figure this shit out on the fly. All right, so let's get it popping. All right, so the number 10 reason, or number 10 signal, we're fucking up, that an authority requires permission. Number 10. Number 10, we're doing a countdown to number 1. Number 10, they apologize too fast. They apologize too fast. So what's this about? They panic about losing approval and try to make the discomfort they're experiencing go away immediately. They say, I stand for this. And then a bunch of people, no, how could you? Well, I didn't mean that's not what I meant. I'm sorry if I. It's like, no. This is I guess the most surface level way that somebody shows just how much their authority needs permission. The first shirt I ever made when I started the Pressure Project podcast in 2014, right? So we're talking 12 years ago at this point when I first started just making public content. The first shirt I made was "Never apologize for being a man," because I thought that was just the simplest, most direct one lesson or observation or law I could share with somebody to get them moving in the right direction. The explanations and models have gotten a lot more sophisticated over the last decade, but it really comes down to, why are you fucking apologizing? Did you do something wrong? Are you apologizing because you did something wrong? Because you didn't fulfill an obligation or a commitment? Because you lied? You were deceptive? Or are you apologizing for basically being you simply because this expression of being you offends somebody else? And you are so conflict averse that you would just as soon apologize for being who you are than have to withstand the offense or rejection or condemnation or criticism of somebody else. It's like, no, that's not what we're doing here. It's not what I'm fucking doing. It's not what I'm ever doing. So what should you do instead? Like, how do you, if you're somebody that has an issue with this, right, how do you resolve it? What is the process that you can give yourself to keep yourself on mission? I would say when you feel that discomfort because people are rejecting the position that you just shared, the first thing you got to do is you got to wait. You got to sit there and say, okay, I'm not just going to react, to this hate that I'm getting, and the criticisms that, so many people are so comfortable giving, especially anonymously on the internet. You got to just sit there and say, okay, I'm not going to react suddenly. And then you're going to sit there and, you're going to just reassess the move that you made based on the criteria you're following and the person that you are, the beliefs, obligations, etc., everything that makes up who you are. And then you're going to act in accordance with what the decision you make is. It's like, nope, I said what I felt. I meant to say what I felt. I was authentic in sharing what I felt. They're giving me shit because they don't like my opinion, not because I made a mistake. So fuck them all, which was the thumbnail for this week, right? So that's what that was based on. So the number 10 signal that an authority requires permission, they apologize too fast. All right. Number 9, they start explaining themselves. This is one that you guys are familiar with. People start talking and suddenly, when it starts landing on the crowd they're speaking to, they notice that the energy shifts. The receptive energy that they experienced just before they stated an opinion suddenly starts moving around and away from them. So what do? They start justifying themselves to the people so the people don't turn on them. They start saying, well, what I actually meant was, because if you think about it, and it's like, if you said everything that you need to say, any explanation that you're giving after it is just a justification because you didn't like how what you had said before landed on the person you're saying it to. You'll see this sometimes in the sales process, right? Which a lot of times when, this is a little business angle, but if a salesman positions himself weakly, he is not perceived as an authority on what it is that he's offering to a prospect in a sales conversation. And he'll make an offer. The person will say something rejecting or criticizing that offer, and immediately they start explaining it. My coaching program, right? The Pressure Process, which is the one-on-one coaching program that I have with people. It's not cheap. And there are people who apply and they get to the point where they understand or they're given the terms of what it would be, and they're like, oh, that's too expensive. It's like, okay. Okay, I get it. And it's, there's no judgment. It's basically overlap and offset in my mind. It's compatibility and incompatibility. If this is expensive, it's expensive to you. And if it's expensive to you, then yeah, you probably shouldn't do it because you just can't afford it, and it's not an insult. It's just an assessment. Jim Rohn says, it's not that it's expensive, it's that you can't afford it. So for me, I don't explain myself. Why? Because I do position myself and feel that I am the authority in my business. And that's conveyed when I speak to people, regarding business, topics, right? So how do you fix this, right? What should you do instead of starting to explain yourself, justify yourself? It's very easy. You're going to tell yourself, I'm just going to say it once. I'm going to say it once. And whatever an individual's reaction is going to be, I'll deal with that reaction on its face, but I'm not going to restate something that I'd already said to make it more palatable to the person who's rejecting it, or the person who's criticizing me as a result of expressing it. I'm just going to say things once, and then I'm going to keep it moving. And it's going to be what it's going to be. And there's plenty of times where, again, I'll use my coaching business as an example. I have guys that are very motivated to do coaching with me. And then, during the application process, I find out some things that they're about that just really don't align with who I am and the type of work that I do. And I let them know, like, I don't think this is going to work. And I haven't even told them, what the investment is to start the coaching with me, because it doesn't even matter, because no matter how much money they give me, it's just not going to be an aligned relationship. At some point, I'm going to be giving them something that they don't want to design a life that they're not trying to design. So that incompatibility should be acknowledged and responded to without anybody sacrificing their identity in the process, right? So number 9, they start explaining themselves. All right. So number 8, this is the number 8 signal that an authority requires permission. They reference the crowd So they say what they're going to say, and they start getting a little bit of heat, and suddenly they start to lean on the justification or the validation of what other people think, because the pressure was enough to make them not even trust their own position. It's like, where should we go to dinner? I think we should go to the sushi place. Oh, but sushi, it's not really good. Well, I don't know. I just said sushi because you had, but we can go anywhere. Where do you guys want to go? I'm sure I probably want to go where you. It's like, all right. It's like, all right, shut up, shut up, bitch. We don't need you making any fucking noise with your face. Um, but that's what happens when you have somebody who references the crowd at the first sign of pushback. They defer to other people. So now, yeah, there are a lot of deficiencies that an individual that does this type of thing needs to work on. But relevant to this list here, it is a signal that the authority that they are wielding turns out requires permission. So number 8, they reference the crowd. Let's get to number 7. They change tone under pressure. They change tone under pressure, right? So they sound confident when things are going easy and everybody agrees with them and everybody's nodding their head. But suddenly they become defensive, nervous, inconsistent, maybe even aggressive once they start getting pushed. They start to get rattled. Their belief in themselves, obviously, is revealed to have been permission-based from the people they're speaking to. They're very confident because everybody's agreeing. It's like the confidence a toddler has on a playground when every couple of steps he looks back and makes sure his mom's still there on the bench. And he's able to explore because every once in a while he's checking in. That's how some people are when they're stating their opinions. And when everybody's agreeing with them, they're all about it. But as soon as that pushback happens, they just become somebody else. The energy changes. And what's stripped from them, because they're relying on permission, is the certainty of the message they're sharing. They're saying, this is me, and this is the truth. And then they get that pushback, and suddenly they go, well, is this me? Is this the truth? And they start creating scenarios and stories in their head that just distract them from delivering the message they probably should have stuck with in the first place. And that is how you fix this. That's the do this instead portion of this particular one. Just hold your position. Just hold your position. You get pushback, just hold your position. You don't have to justify, you don't have to apologize for it, you don't have to change your position. You certainly don't have to change your tone. Somebody asks me my name and I say Justin, and they go, is it? And I'm like, oh man, well, what do you mean? Is it? Yeah. And suddenly I'm so fragile that the pressure they give me has me going, well, I think it is, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? If you know something, then state it as something you know. Just as assuredly you know your name. But if you're stating that, now here's something to be said. I've spoken about Bayesian logic before, sharing complete positions based on incomplete information. It's like, well, if you don't know as much as you're stating that you know, well, yeah, now you're leaving yourself vulnerable, right? What is it? You're getting ahead of your skis, I think is the phrase. We didn't do much skiing in the Bronx growing up, but I think that's the phrase. So the idea is, yeah, you want to have the discipline and the self-awareness, the integrity, I would even say, to share what you know and not a bit more. But once you do that and somebody pushes back, there's no reason to alter my energy or my state as a result of that. People are going to do what they're going to do because that's their best idea for them and what they're doing. I've done a lot of NLP training over the years, and one of the tenets that's shared in NLP is everybody's doing the best they can. When you're first introduced to the idea, You don't exactly know what it means. You got to let it marinate for a little while. But it really comes down to this person in this moment is saying something to design an outcome that they want. They might not want it consciously, right? A lot of times people, they explode emotionally because unbeknownst to them in the moment, they're really seeking catharsis, right? They're trying to vent and get some sort of release so they can get their equilibrium back. They might not be conscious of it, but everybody in every moment is trying to generate the outcome they want. I'm doing that in this moment without consciously being aware of every aspect of that, as are you. If you're watching this right now, there's a fuck ton of other shit you could be doing right now, but you're doing this because out of all the options in this moment, you're like, this is the best idea. And I appreciate that, by the way. So when you say something that is authentic, that follows whatever criteria you have of being authentic and maintaining your integrity, when they push back, just hold where you are, right? For a buddy of mine, he says, hold what you got, and that certainly applies. So that's number 7. They change tone under pressure. Number 6. Oh man, this is a common one. You guys have seen this shit before. They hide behind credentials. They hide behind credentials. They list their titles, their degrees, their experiences, their accolades, their status, because at that point in the exchange, their words aren't strong enough anymore. I remember I was once asked, I used to play handball a lot when, growing up in the Bronx. And just once I was asked in this tournament I was playing in to be a ref, like a line judge in one of the matches. The first call I make, everybody in the park disagrees with, right? And I'm like, it was out and everybody loses their mind. And listen, I might have gotten it wrong. My eyes worked really well back then, but I might have made a bad call. But at no point did I start saying, well, I'm the judge and you shut up and I have this experience and that. But it's like, well, that's my call. For me, it's like, that's my call. He's like, oh, are you guys going to ignore it? Like, do what you want. I don't give a fuck. There's just a point where I'm not going to validate my position beyond who I am just because somebody rejected it on its face. It's like, well, what do you think? I think it's this. Well, what do you know? It's like, well, wait a minute. That's the question you got to ask before you ask me my opinion. But if I'm stating something, you don't get to try and increase the qualification criteria just because you disagree with it. Nor am I going to play along with that. Right? So very similar to the last one. How do you fix this? Instead of hiding behind your credentials because people are rejecting what you're saying, you just stand on the statement that you shared. Right? You just hold your position again. It's like, well, that's what I said. Any qualification should have happened before they considered what you said. So it's not something that you should be trying to sort of negotiate after the fact. So number 6, they hide behind credentials. Let's see if we got some comments. Dowdy, what's up, brother man? Willie, what up? My man Cap says, I aspire to be nice like Dalton and Roadhouse. You're on Saxo, what's up? Good to see you. The fuck is this guy talking about? If you could only buy firearms from one manufacturer. I don't fucking know. Listen, I learned how to shoot in my 30s. Like, I barely have favorite pistols or firearms, let alone manufacturers. FL Treasure, what's going on? Johnny Groob. All right, where am I? Fucking getting lost here. All right, so we just went over number 6. Let's get to number 5 in the list. We're moving. We are moving. Number 5. They argue instead of state. I think I cut that one off. I think it was supposed to be state their opinion or state whatever. Fucking that works. So they argue instead of making a statement. They get pulled into these exchanges, these back and forths, because in order to feel secure and certain about their position, they need people to agree. They need people to align. They don't want to be the person, or I should say, they don't have the ability to be the person who could stand firm when everybody disagrees with them. So what they'll try and do is, since they're not winning the persuasion battle or the logic battle, what they'll do is they'll try and dominate the other person by arguing aggressively in order to somehow supplement the strength of their position. So how are you supposed to deal with this so that this doesn't happen? How are you supposed to deal with this type of situation so you don't find yourself arguing? It's very easy. And there's a recurring theme here. You made the call already. Stand by it. If I'm saying, well, I think this is the thing we should do next. Oh, why would you say that? This, and people can get aggressive. And because sometimes people can't handle that sort of disagreement, right? And your position might be the thing that sets them off into one of these dysfunctional, reactive states. So if you're now changing your state based on their reactive state, it's like, who's leading the dance here? It's like, I think we should do this next. Oh, I don't understand why the fuck you did that. It's like, okay, are you done? Right? I had one of my coaching guys the other day. You might be watching. Shout out to you if you are. I'm not going to say your name. But we were going over some stuff for his business. And he was a little poopy faced, right? He had a little woe is me going on. And I told him, I said, man, that story is pretty fucking emotional. I said, those are the type of stories you write with paintbrushes. It's so expressive and emotive. There's just a point where if you know what we're doing and you know what your position is and you know what the next thing or whatever you're stating to be true in alignment with your use of what true might be, it's like, well, what do we, we're not negotiating this anymore. We're already past that point, right? I made a call and I'm standing by it, and that's what it is, and do what you want. Like, that's just how it is. Sometimes it's just a level of pressure that some people aren't used to coexisting with. And I would say when they find that pressure to be corrosive or just eroding who they are, unnerving, whatever word I could use to describe it, well, that's identity work they need to do. That's not an argument work. When I look at different application of this, but certainly related conceptually, guys who can't get a girlfriend, so they study like persuasive tactics and strategies to manipulate a girl to become their girlfriend. It's like, okay, that's one way to do it, right? Oh man, I was about to use a fishing analogy. I'm gonna use it. This isn't a segue from the girlfriend thing into a fishing analogy. Just it's the way the brain works, all right? There's two ways you can get a fish for dinner. You could go to the market and buy a fish, or you could learn how to fish. People who strategize to manipulate girls, they're trying to not be the men that these girls want. They're basically letting whoever showed them this strategy and technique be the guy that's doing it for them. It's like, let me show you how to fool a woman into thinking you're a man. Who the fuck wants to buy that program? That's not the copy they use to market it. They make it a lot more sexy and appealing. But it really comes down to, why are you defining your success by finding a woman? It's like your success comes from, and I'm getting into some other shit now, but just to close the loop and finish the point, your success should be measured in your ability to stay committed to developing your own power. When you do that, the people who are compatible with that powerful version of you, they will gravitate towards you. Don't be so fucking thirsty. Don't be so fucking thirsty. Fuck am I rambling on about? All right, back on mission. Stop fucking distracting me, you guys. All right, what are we doing? All right, we got some comments. Mark, what's going on? All right, who's this fucking guy? Who you think you are, you don't know what is there. From there to here, from everywhere. Be smart about who you know because they might know what you know. I didn't know fucking Dr. Seuss's first name was Steve. I don't know if I agree with you, disagree with you. Um, I don't know. I don't know what the fuck you're saying, bro. I don't mean to insult you. It's just like I just don't understand what you're saying. All right. So let's get to. Oh, he wrote something else. Welcome to the Dr. Seuss show. Nah, bro, you are wrong about that. I don't know. I don't know what you're referring to. Feel free to write whatever you want, and I'll respond to it. But I got to get through this list. All right. So where are we up to? We are up to number 4. All right. They seek moral cover. They seek moral cover, right? So remember, this is somebody who is trying to be or act from a position of authority, but it turns out they do this thing that shows they were relying on permission the whole time. So they seek moral cover. They'll wrap their position in virtue signaling or righteousness because they can't stand on the merits of their position directly. It's like somebody who says something, gets some feedback, and then they'll quote like a scripture and say, well, this says, it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, we're trying to argue the merits a lot of times of preference. And when you start trying to anchor your preference to truth, you're saying it's not preference. You're saying it's just the way it is, Like if I asked you what's your favorite ice cream flavor and you say vanilla and I say I disagree, and you say, well, if you look at this book of what the vanilla flavor is, it's like you're looking for some sort of objective support for your position. And that's how people a lot of times use morality. They try to gain the moral high ground when they can't gain the structural one, the logical one, the power-based one, right? It's like you're arguing with somebody, and this is usually either women or womanly men, where you'll get into an argument, you'll say something, and they'll go, but why are you raising your voice? Or with me, it's usually, but why are you cursing? It's like, oh, all right. So now I gotta fucking behave by your rules, It just becomes, it's like, all right, so we're not arguing the thing then. You're just trying to go somewhere else with it, somewhere where you could feel that you have the high ground. And this is common with people, that they just can't stand on their positions directly. So they try to sort of just wrap it up in this moral superiority or this more generally moral positioning. It's like, no, man, just stay on the merits of what you're saying. So what should you do instead? You should already explain what your values are. They should be stated. They should be understood to the level at which it applies to what it is that you're saying that's getting all the feedback. It's like if I have a Catholic priest who's saying, I believe in, helping old ladies cross the street. And I go, well, that old lady's an asshole. Like, I don't know. I'm making something up. And he goes, well, the Bible says, like, listen, you got the thing. Like, I get it. You talking about the Bible is not going to change my position on what this is, because I understand that that is how you're making your decisions, because you got the whole get up on, with the thing. I don't know what it's called. But seeking, moral cover, like it's a very common tactic for somebody who just gets nervous around pushback, and sometimes, sure, it's the insecurity of, but I'm a good person. And it's like, all right, because that's a thing for some people. But a lot of times it's just oh no, you're just trying to guilt me into agreeing with you. I'm right, but you're better, like, and it's just very easily seen, I would say. All right, number 3. They retreat into silence after speaking. They retreat into silence after speaking. So, what does this refer to? This refers to the person who was not aware that what they were sharing, what they were saying, could expose them to consequences, to pushback. And when they're first introduced to that, first thing they do is they bail. Right? They're not going to argue it. They're not going. They just stay quiet. They almost just relinquish any authority that they had, just because they refuse to deal with the pressure. Sometimes you'll talk to people and, they'll be very assertive and almost invested in what it is that they're saying, the position they're sharing. But then you'll see them exposed to a level of pushback where they just shut down. And it's like, wait a minute, like, keep talking, motherfucker. Like, you just had all this stuff to say about this thing. Now, because people are disagreeing with you, you turned into a fucking mouse. Happens a lot. And I would say that the overwhelming majority of consequences that men experience today are deficiencies of identity. They don't know who they are. So we used to know, and as a society, that you are treated favorably, valued, supported by other people when you as an individual have value. But it used to be, I'm going to create value, and then I would develop these relationships as a result of that value observed by other people. But now it's get the approval by any means necessary, but there is no process of value that precedes that, per se. It's like, I will be loved by all if I am the strongest, best man I could be. It's like, what's not understood by men today is that you got to do that on your own first. And by the way, that is just a feedback, a symptom even, of you doing the right thing over here. So when you see people that just clam up, they're like, oh, this isn't going the way I want, because they're not standing on anything, obviously, clearly, that was based on who they are and their identity. They were saying something and representing something because they wanted the outcome that they thought it would produce. And when they don't get it, it's like, all right, let me stop speaking. Let me not make it any worse, right? Probably more practically. Right, so number 3, they retreat into silence after speaking. Let's get to number 2. And number 2, this is a common one. You guys have seen this shit happen before. They frame pushback as a misunderstanding. They pretend that the people not getting it is because they just didn't understand what they were saying. They know they're threatened by the disagreement itself. They know they don't like that people are disagreeing with them. So they don't accept the premise that it's even possible. It's like, no, you don't get it. Let me just explain it a little bit more so you understand that I'm right. And everything that you are, that you are, turns out is wrong. What's your favorite ice cream flavor? Vanilla. Well, let me show you and explain to you why why vanilla actually isn't your favorite ice cream. It's like, motherfucker, I know what my favorite ice cream flavor is. Mine is vanilla Swiss almond, by the way. Objectively, the best ice cream flavor there is. So now, how do you fix having this shortcoming, right? Of framing every disagreement and misunderstanding? It's very easy. You allow disagreement. You operate under the premise that when I state an opinion, when I state a conclusion, when I state some sort of position, there are going to be people that fucking disagree. And there's nothing wrong with that. So if you understand that premise from the beginning, you won't be so thrown off when it presents itself, inevitably. Old wisdom tells you if you ain't got any enemies at some point, that is a direct feedback that you haven't fucking done enough. You know, there's a point where as a man, you become big enough that there's no fence that you could fit on, right? It's very hard to balance on a fence when you're somebody of value and worth. That means you got to take sides just because that's where your identity is. I'm not saying that you have to participate in other people's battles. You know, hopefully that's not being confused with what I'm saying. What I'm saying is part of establishing who you are, and I spoke about this, I represented this visually in Tribalnomics in the book. It's like there's a circle, and I call that the wall of self, and you are who's in that circle. And the wall of that circle represents the connection between you, everything you are, and everything you are not. So just by saying, I am this person, you are also saying, I am not everything outside of this person. So just saying who you are has you pick a side. Your identity represents a decision, a preference, a position. So how do you get over this? You know, as I said before, you just assume, operate under the premise that people are going to fucking disagree with you. So when those disagreements show up, you don't lose your shit, right? So that's number 2. Let's get to number 1. All right, so this is a good one. So again, this is the number 1 reason. Where's the list here? All right, this list, just to remind everybody, is 10 signals that an authority requires permission and how to fix it. Let's go back down the list. Let me remind everybody. So we started at number 10. They apologize too fast. 9. They start explaining themselves. 8. They reference the crowd. 7. They change tone under pressure. 6. They hide behind credentials. It's like Family Feud. You can read along if you want. 5. They argue instead of state. 4. They seek moral cover. 3. They retreat into silence after speaking. 2, the last one we just did, they frame pushback as misunderstanding. And let's get to the number 1 signal. They try to be liked after being challenged. Oh man, how many people do you guys know that just cannot stand not being liked? They cannot stand somebody rejecting them. It's like every time they state an opinion, people reject who they are and don't like them as a result. And they're like, you know what? I should stop having opinions. That's their reaction. Some people, you know, and how does that look, you know, in the moment when they're displaying this? They start joking around. They start acting silly. They start softening their stances. They're pandering. Why? You guys remember was it Hillary Clinton on that radio show when she said she kept hot sauce in her purse because it's a black hip hop radio station in New York City? And they were like, You don't have fucking hot sauce in your purse. You're lying fuck. They didn't say all that, but that pandering, why is that? Because she is literally trying to be liked. Now, obviously, there's a point to her being liked. She's running for office at the time. But that is a version of exactly what I'm saying. They start joking around and pandering just to make everybody comfortable with them as soon as there's a little bit of pushback. They start making the joke to sort of recruit everybody back into the overlap. So, how do you resolve this? How do you resolve this, an individual not liking being challenged, so they try to be liked when it happens? You accept, again, and this, I'm not going to rehash everything that I had said a little bit before, but you accept that, being who you are means not being everybody who you are not, which means there are going to be times where two identities are going to share an idea, and there's going to be tension between those two ideas. There's going to be a tension between the potential conflict between two individuals just following who they are. I like using the ice cream example, right? Because it's pretty, I would say benign. But if you have somebody that loves chocolate, somebody that loves vanilla, at some point there's going to be tension when it comes to who's choosing the ice cream flavor and what the choice is going to be. And that just goes along with the constraints of the situation they find themselves in. If there's three people who like different flavors of ice cream, and the ice cream guy comes and goes, hey, I need one flavor that I'm going to give you guys to have. As soon as they, whatever process they choose, decide on one person, that person's decision is going to be the decision. Everybody should already know that that's a part of the process that they're limited to. Fuck, I like this ice cream. He likes that one. He likes the other one. Only one guy could choose. I hope it's me, so I get mine. But I know if it's not me, I'm going to have to eat ice cream that isn't my favorite flavor. Like, we accept the constraints of the circumstances. Accept and process the tension. It's okay to have tension, because a lot of times it's just everybody staying true to who they are, with the full understanding that they're not going to be completely overlapped with everybody. It's like when somebody adds the condition to comparing themselves to somebody else. I really like his stuff. I don't agree with everything. It's like, you never have to say that, by the way. We say that because here we are pandering a little bit. But you don't agree with everybody on everything. So saying I don't agree with him on everything, it's really a useless statement. So understand the motivation for saying that when you do. It's to just sort of soften up the potential tension that could arise from you saying what you said. So number one, they try to be liked after being challenged, right? So if we're talking about authority, authority isn't about being right. It isn't about apologizing. It's about when the heat gets turned up, do you change? Do you melt? In the friction audit, right? A program that I made, I don't even know if the link's in the description. I talk about friction, the main function of friction being an external source of resistance against your efforts. People look at that as like something that's bad, something that is unfortunate, something that they should never want. But at some point it becomes throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's almost like being resentful that weights at the gym are heavy. Friction is the resistance that gives you the ability, number one, to understand exactly the merits of who you are and what you're trying to do. I've had a lot of people, I've run a martial arts school 25 years. I've had guys tell me, I want to fight MMA. It's like, okay, you want to fight MMA? If you want to fight MMA, I want you to fight MMA. Come to the MMA class. And then they spend a couple of hours getting punched in the face. And a lot of guys over the years, next time I see them, it turns out, I don't think MMA is for me. I think I'm just going to stay. It's like, go over there. It's like, that's what I understand them to be. That's, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's what the friction does. in that particular example. It reveals to them who they are, because maybe they actually thought they were interested in fighting MMA. Turns out they like the idea of fighting MMA more than they like fighting MMA, right? Two different things. So I hope that list made sense. Let me see if there's more comments. What's going on here? Here on Saxis says, what a strange comment. No, I think that was the Dr. Seuss guy. And again, like, listen, whoever you are, Steve, whoever you are, like, if you got a point, share it. I'm be more than happy to discuss it. There's never been one conversation I've ever run from. My man Cap says, chocolate chip cookie dough, cookies and cream. Those are your favorites? What's the third fucking kind? Fucking diabetes? Like, how do you have two fucking favorites? That's great. All right, so before I go off on some other tangent, I'll end it there. I think I put down everything I wanted to. Hopefully you picked it up in the process. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. If you guys aren't getting my emails, you know that there's Master Chim Letter, and on mobile, it's here, masterchimletter.com. Go there, sign up for my emails. I send one out every day. There's always a quote of the day. Usually the quote of the day is disconnected from the email itself. So some people, they tell me I don't read every email, but I always make sure that I just open it up for the quote of the day. Just always trying to give people things to sort of contemplate and reflect on. But again, I appreciate you guys hanging out. I'll be here next week. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.